Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 200 of the High Sensitivity Podcast. Thank you for listening. If it's your first time here, we talk about video game and movie news as well as what we watched or played over the week. My name is Barry, along with my co host, back to the OG days.
Yes, my name is Craig. Feels weird. I don't remember the last time there was just two of us.
Yeah, it's weird with we usually have three windows, and now it's
Yep.
just like your center stage on
Yep.
my window
I don't
here.
know if I like it.
Yeah, exactly. We're definitely missing Craig. He's a little sick and under the weather, so he will not be with us this week, and he will not be with us next week unless we can make some recording adjustments. So get
Yep.
used to the crew that you started with.
The
Podcast,
OGs.
yeah. Podcast
Speaking
200 starts the same off as podcast number 1.
speaking of OG and people have been with us. Before we started, I just wanted to give a quick shout out. I got quite a few text messages, emails this week from people about the MLB the Show segment.
Oh please! Oh boy, this should be
So,
fun.
I mean, quite a few of you. One shout out in particular. I'll give a shout out to Rob out there. I know he's been listening since almost day one. He texted me this weekend. He's like, "Hey, I just want to let you know that that MLB the Show segment was hilarious. Hitting schlongers and Subway footlongs were his favorite." Um, so we had a winner, Barry. You had a winner with that segment. Well done.
Good. I'm glad. I am very happy. We had never laughed that hard in such a
No.
long time.
Yep.
But
That was
don't
out of
worry,
control.
MLB the Show will continue to get another segment on this, as we'll be talking about it again this week.
Okay.
At least on my end. But we'll go ahead and talk about the news first. Been here since day one. It's the one segment we'll never get rid of.
Yep.
So, with that being said, we have Final Fantasy XVI's next DLC, The Rising Tide, has been announced and is coming out April 18th. Just under a month here that it'll be coming out. I'm excited for it. I bought the expanded DLC for it. I thought the first challenge floor thing that they did is good. They're adding another challenge floor option with this one as well, but it's got more story content, and I think there is a new ending. There's nothing said about a new ending, but I think it unlocks like a new limit break form for Clive. So
Okay.
I wouldn't be surprised if maybe we get a newer ending now that he has all of the icons.
Interesting. I still haven't played the original. It's interesting timing. I guess they're trying to capitalize on the Final Fantasy train right now, which makes
Yeah.
sense. But like me personally, like I'm not going to bring it up in games play because obviously I'm still playing Final Fantasy, but like I'm like 60 hours deep into that game now. And like the idea of going back to Final Fantasy 16 right now is just like, no. I have enough Final Fantasy right now.
It's too daunting for sure.
Yeah, it's too much.
We then have Team 0% beats every single level in Super Mario Maker for Wii U before servers shut down on April 8th.
Yep.
I think that's an incredible achievement considering that there has to be millions upon hundreds of thousands of levels created in that game, as it's a user-generated Mario level simulator is what I'll call it. Just incredible to beat it before those servers shut down. That I know they've been doing it for a while, but that's just an incredible achievement and dedication.
Yeah, I watch on YouTube. I watch Ryukar, who plays Mario Maker, and he's also been trying to clean out all the ones that haven't been beaten before it gets shut down. So it's an impressive feat for sure. I don't remember when they stopped allowing uploads. It was a while ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but yeah, they got it done. That's crazy. Props to them. They must have been like, I don't even want to know how many they were doing every day to get that done, but that's insane. Have you heard if there's any way like once the server shut down to play it, or is it done?
I don't know, because I believe most of the levels have to be like streamed from a server and then you play them. So I don't think any levels are downloaded.
Okay.
At all. I think
unless you have your own.
Yeah, I guess your own that you could probably make. But other than that, yeah, you're right. It's a weird thing, but the Wii U has been dead for years now, and I
True.
imagine Nintendo's just kind of pushing that to the side as much as they can before the Switch 2 comes out.
Yes.
I then have Larian Studios has come out and said that they're not making another D&D inspired game after Baldur's Gate 3. There will be no DLC or anything like that. That was also met with a bunch of their internal people were also very excited about that fact. It has to be incredibly draining to make a
Yeah.
game like this. And, I was just reading an article about how that game has double the script time of Game of Thrones. And I think 3 times the amount of words as the entire collection of Lord of the Rings books. So, just keep that in mind for how much time and dedication went into Baldur's Gate 3. And of course, it got all the awards it got its due. But good for
Yep.
that studio just to come out and say, hey, I know you like what we make, but we're doing something completely different next time. And if you don't like it, go play Baldur's Gate 3 again.
Yeah. I mean, there's enough there to keep you entertained. I'm more excited to see what they do next. Like, is it something completely different? Is it an RPG? Like, I don't know. That's cool. I'm glad they get to kind of like step away and be like, all right, let's just do something completely new.
Benefits of being independent
Yep.
in a lot of
For
ways
sure.
without being bought.
Yep.
We then had the NVIDIA press conference about like kind of gaming beyond, and they showed a ton of different games. Main thing that I want to mention is Marvel 1943 Rise of
Yeah.
Hydra. It looks to be a single player game with Captain America and both older versions of Captain America and Black Panther being in the game. I thought this looked really cool. I definitely think that this has the ability to be something like Guardians of the Galaxy for us, but we need to see what ends up happening with it just because Marvel games have been kind of a strikeout lately, depending
Yeah.
on what you've been playing. And really, they should be focusing on making more games like Guardians of the Galaxy, but we haven't gotten anything since.
I mean, that just looked like a cutscene to me, though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I got no sense of what type of game that would be. If it's like is it like a Spider-Man type open world game or what? Or is it, yeah, like you said, Guardians, like straight story driven? I'd be down for either. Um, More Marvel, the better for games wise. Other than that, we have what? Wolverine is probably the next one.
Yeah, Wolverine and Blade. Blade, I don't.
Blade.
Yeah, Blade, they haven't said anything yet, but we will get that. I am excited for Blade.
Mm-hmm.
And then the kind of the biggest news story that comes out of gaming for the most part is last Sunday. We record on Sundays, guys, so this is sort
Yep.
of older news at this point. But the Apex Legend Global Series, the North American Finals, was hacked mid-match. Many of the competitive players started to see aimbots put onto their computers. Many of them also saw like people's names and locations through the map. How this happened, they're not really sure, but it's a huge question mark for the security of one of the biggest battle royales that still lives to this day.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people were blaming Apex. I think a lot of other people are blaming the software that they use, Easy Cheat, I think is what it's called. But
Yeah.
they've since said and have come out to say that they're going to be putting more security into the game via like layered updates is what they're calling it. So maybe, certain security levels throughout the game so that this doesn't happen again. But this is the first time we've really seen a competitive gaming format hacked remotely from someone else's computer. And, does that mean this is safe? Is
Yeah.
it safe to play Apex? That kind of thing.
Did it? It almost seemed like somebody just did it just for fun, right? Like, hey, I'm gonna put cheats on all their computers and it'll be funny. But yeah, it's I know like the cheating thing has been rampant as far as like streamer wise in Warzone. I've
Mm-hmm.
been watching a lot of that lately. People being like, hey, like majority of the top streamers are all cheating. You don't really hear so much of that in Apex, but maybe because it's not as dominant, if that makes sense, in the spotlight. But I do feel like in general, when I play Apex, I feel like I encounter less what I would think would be cheating. Whereas with Warzone, I feel like almost every game I'm like, oh my god, somebody's cheating.
Yeah, exactly. It's how I feel about Apex too. Like I don't feel like there isn't too much to be said about it, but it is definitely worrying for people who play this game a lot and especially
Yeah.
competitively. To get that kind of hacked via mid game, I think a lot of people were saying they've had access to the entirety of his computer in order
Yep.
to be able to do that. So just think about that when it comes to when it comes to what is available and people could see in your game. God forbid he's opening up documents or something like that, and
Right.
showing IP addresses or bank account numbers. That would have been even worse. Luckily, instead it's just aim bots and hacks in the Apex game.
Yeah. It's crazy.
But that's all
That
I
was
have
your
for news.
okay. All right. I got a few here. First one, GTA 6 news. Development reportedly has fallen behind. Now Rockstar hasn't confirmed this, but the internal chatter is that it is a very real possibility that it's going to slip to 2026. Sure. We've waited how many years at this point? What's another year? I know most people are going to be like, no, it needs to come out next year, but I think the last thing Rockstar is going to do is put it out if it's not ready.
Yeah, well, what came with the PS5 Pro rumors is the fact that it's going to be PS6 like backwards compatible
Right.
in a way. So PS6 games were going to work for this Pro, and of course, the biggest talking point was the GTA 6 and
Yep.
how is that going to be and how it becomes PS6 backwards compatible. I'm not trying to think about the next PlayStation at the moment,
Not
so I'd
yet.
rather not. Yeah.
Yeah. And I know that's what's crazy to think about is when GTA 5 came out, it was like, yeah, you can play it on the PS3 and Xbox 360, but you're getting a lesser version than you would on the PS4 or the Xbox One. And here we are 10 years later, 15, whatever. And it's like, oh, guess what? It's the same thing again. Yeah, you can buy it on PS5 and Series X, but are we going to want to, or is it going to be like, oh, you should just get it on the PS6?
Yeah, exactly.
Are,
Or
are we
like
that
what
are we that close to PS6? We can't be.
it doesn't feel like it, but with COVID and how it changed the entire gaming cycle for this year,
Yeah.
it doesn't feel like they should be out yet. But you know, the PS5 is 5 years old now, going on 6,
Yeah.
and but it just stinks that for a lot of people because of COVID, they weren't able to get them till 2 or 3 years ago.
Right.
We were lucky enough to get them on launch, but that wasn't because we had to jump through a lot of hoops in
Right.
order to be able to get those things. It wasn't because we just waited for them to be available. We were always on it and that kind of thing.
Something in my brain doesn't allow me to look over and think that my Series X is 5, 6 years old.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like
Years.
it. Both
Yeah.
these systems don't feel
It
like it.
feels like two tops.
It also feels like we haven't even reached like the apex of what these consoles can
Mm-mm.
do either. On the box they even say 4K 120. I really
Yep.
haven't seen that yet in any of the games we play,
Mm-mm.
and haven't seen any of these 8K games either
Right.
that they advertise. So I think personally, if you're launching a PS6 within the next, let's say 2026, 2 years, I think
Mhm.
you're gonna have a lot of people that don't buy it. I think
Yeah.
it's gonna be one of those things where Sony's gonna be like, "What did we do wrong?" And it's like, "Well, you came out with a console that too soon
Yep.
after COVID, and it took you too long to get these consoles out during COVID." It's got nothing to do with how
Yeah.
powerful or how bad the system is. If as long as they don't have a pricing fiasco like the PS3, it'll eventually sell.
Yeah. Part of me, I was also thinking about this today. I was like, do they get pressured when the Switch 2 launches to be like, all right, we got to get a new system out? But I don't think so, because I don't think Microsoft and Sony are ever threatened by what Nintendo's doing.
No,
I
I
don't,
don't think I don't think so either.
yeah. They don't look
I
at them as like a direct competitor almost.
Yeah. I do feel like Sony feels pressure to put out a new console
Hmm.
because with the poor sales of the Series X, if you could make another generational leap before Xbox does, you may have people jumping on your train earlier than what they
Hmm.
were for Xbox. And also Xbox is so much busier now with, PC games and how you can play them on PC anymore. And we've really seen that come to life here in the last 2 3 years with games coming out on Game Pass for PC day one.
Yep.
What do you need an Xbox for?
True. Yeah. I mean, it's well known I use my Xbox more, but like obviously right now my PlayStation's getting like all the use pretty
Yeah.
much. But yeah, when a game comes out for PlayStation, I'm on it like all the time. And still to this day, and I don't know what it is, but in general, games look like I play a game on my PlayStation. I'm playing Final Fantasy on my PlayStation, and I'm sitting there playing it and just like, wow, this looks incredible. But no matter what game I play on my Xbox, and to clarify, like both of my TVs are capable of the same thing, right? My
Yeah.
Xbox and my Xbox never looks that good.
Yeah.
Ever, ever. And I even like I was playing I turned mine on the other day and I was playing the show, right? And I was
Mhm.
like, I even hit the info and I was like, no, my TV says it's putting out 4K, just
Yeah.
like it does, but for whatever reason, it just does not look the same. Not as clear, not as like crisp. I don't know. It's definitely behind, I think.
Yeah, and maybe it's because it's easier to make games for the PlayStation, but those are all specifics that we don't.
Yeah, true. True. Okay. Resident Evil news now. Resident Evil 9 could possibly be going open world. And I would almost clarify that by saying it depends on what they're considering open world, because I would almost say Resident Evil 8 was kind of open world.
Open
Kind of.
world or open zone is what
Right.
would tend to call it.
Mm-hmm.
I would much prefer them to stick to an open zone
Mm-hmm.
rather than an open world. Like I just don't know how a game like that works in an open world settings where like there were for example, there are a lot of scripted jump scares. And
Yeah.
how can you really do that in an open world setting where you're constantly walking through a certain area kind
Mm-hmm.
of deal there. I've we have too many open worlds as it is. We don't need more. Open
Yep.
zone I can handle.
Yeah, I think what they did in Resident Evil 8 worked really well. It was like, hey, you're gonna end up back in the village eventually, but you're going to go off and okay, now this door's unlocked, which gets you to this next area. I think that works perfectly. Resident Evil 4 does it, Resident Evil 8, 7 to a certain extent, but yeah, I think they need to keep with that. I don't think an open world is the solution here at all. um we should probably talk about the Dragon's Dogma 2 stuff,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think.
I
um
knew you'd mention it.
yeah. So this is very confusing because we talked about before that like I was going to hold off on this game. I had watched a ton of reviews this week and I was like, "Oh man, it's getting really good reviews." And then it came out and then I checked stuff the next day and I'm like, "It's getting review bombed. What is going on?" And it has to do with uh some microtransactions. Um how do you feel about the microtransactions that you've seen so far?
They aren't egregious. I think a lot of
Right.
people are making a big deal about nothing. Just me personally.
Yeah. I think the biggest one that I saw was, and again, I haven't played the game. You haven't either, right?
I have not, no.
Okay. So your party members, which you do not control, but you can create one. I think your first one you create.
Yeah,
The
you
other
create a
ones you
pawn.
right. The other ones you can recruit,
Mhm.
buy. Yeah. There's what are they, resurrection stones? I don't know exactly if that's what they're called in
You
the
got it.
game, but
Yep.
if they die, you can bring them back and they're charging for that in a microtransaction, which I think was like $1.99. I don't think it's egregious. I
Yep.
think people are getting a little worked up over it, but it was so weird to see all these super positive reviews before it came out. And then as soon as it comes out, everybody's like, this is horrible. They're hiding their microtransactions, because I watched at least 5 reviews on that game and not one of them did mention microtransactions.
Yeah.
So it
Yep.
could have been something they waited on, right? It seems like they did.
So it depends on who you talk to. I had watched a bunch of reviews as well. We
Okay.
had Inside Games with Lawrence Sontag got the game about a week before release date. And
Yeah.
in his pressing, he shows the email that shows that this game on launch day will have microtransactions. You click to this link and it shows you what it was going to cost.
Okay.
So I don't think so much people were hiding it as probably reviewers saw it and went, "This doesn't look like that big of a deal. It should have been mentioned, sure."
Yeah.
I feel like what people are getting most worked up about is the fact that we're paying more than we have for games at $70 plus tax,
Yep.
and these games are not coming out as like full complete packages. They're instead coming out with microtransactions or, for example, DLC that we continue to see pushed out.
Yeah.
I don't have as big of a problem with it because the microtransactions in this game are not terrible. It's not like they're making you pay hundreds of dollars for this stuff. There's even like buying limits on all of this. And if you look at the buy limits and what you can get, I think it maxes out at $50. Once you get
Mhm.
all this stuff, you don't get any more in this game unless they remove those caps at a later date.
Okay. I think maybe I'm wrong here, but I was kind of thinking maybe it's because of Final Fantasy just coming out and also Dragon's Dogma, which are both open world RPGs. I'll put that in quotations for Final Fantasy. It's kind of open zone, but open world.
Yeah.
And they're both $70. They're both 50 to 100-hour experiences. But with Final Fantasy, it's like, all right, pay the $70. Here's your game. You're going to get 80 hours of it and have a great time. Same thing with Dragon's Dogma, but they're also like, or you could also give us like $2 here, $2 there. Maybe that's part of the reason. Whereas if Final Fantasy wasn't out there, people may not be as upset. Maybe. I don't care either way. I
Yeah.
would never pay the $2 if I lost a party member, a pawn. I lost it, time to move on. But I understand why some people are like, you should be able to find those in the game and, do that. But yeah, I mean, worth mentioning for sure. I do think it's an overreaction personally, but I get it if you are upset. Um, Max Payne remakes, got some news on that as well, which is I'm super pumped for. They just got bumped up to an Alan Wake 2 budget. That's good news.
Yeah, especially, yeah.
Yeah, completely remake those things. They need it. I would love for more people to be able to play 1 and 2, but if you want to throw 3 in there as well, I'll be 100% on board. But the way they are now, if you were to get them on like PC, or you're not going to have a good time. So 100% that is awesome news.
Yeah, I did want to ask you because a lot of
Yep.
the information I read about that
Mhm.
is Max Payne's like face always like Sam Lake's face
Yep.
scrunched up like that during the entire game.
Yep.
It feels like it feels like it's almost like a joke. Like he put his face in the game. It made it look that ridiculous the entire time on purpose.
At the time when it came out, so that would have been PlayStation 2 era, it was, like face uh details in faces weren't great, right?
Hmm.
So the fact that they took a picture and like just put it on the face at the time, you're like, "Oh my god, that's so cool." But yes, it never really changes. I think his eyebrows go up a little
That's
bit.
funny.
Yeah, but it's just that same face the whole game. And all the characters just have like a picture of a face slapped on there. And it was just kind of at the time, you're like, that's really cool.
Yeah.
It's not just polygons or whatever, like going from other games. But yes, I would assume he'll probably do some new motion capture or something for Max Payne. But I am so excited. That's a day one purchase for me.
Yeah, they're getting the budget they deserve to get with these
Yeah.
games, and the fact that they're reusing the money instead of kind of just cashing in on Max Payne, they're going to make a
Hmm.
proper reboot of that series since with Alan Wake's 2 success.
I can only hope that it leads to another Max Payne.
Yeah.
Give me a Max Payne 4. I would be so on board. The the last piece of news I have that I'm going to put in the I told you so category. Those are my favorite. Sony has hit pause on the PSVR 2, specifically because they ain't selling. I know we've talked about it before it came out.
Yeah.
I was
Absolutely.
firmly on the train of these are not going to sell. Do you know anyone who bought one?
No.
I don't either. I haven't heard anything since that thing came out. Nothing. Like no reviews on games. Have you heard of any games coming out for it?
There was the Metro VR
Oh, that's right.
game
Yep.
that's coming out. That's kind of the big one that I noticed because it's as close to Half-Life Alex as you can get
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
for it. I If Sony wants to give me one like a press box, I'll gladly sell it for them. I've got
Yep.
no issue with that because I think it's a neat device.
Sure.
But it's hard to compete with something like the Meta Quest 2 or 3 at this point that
Yep.
doesn't require its own separate station and also has a much bigger library of VR games. It's really hard to compete with that despite the fact that Sony obviously wants to.
Do you think it's something that a year or two from now we're gonna see like clearanced out for like $200?
I think so. I
And
think it'd
would
be
and
good.
would you buy one?
At 200 maybe.
Okay.
Just to at least try it out. Like I know the motion stuff that you could do with your hands is a lot more trackable
Hmm.
on the newer one. But it just depends. I'd have to look to see if it's like the wireless system now with it, or if it's still the 500 wires that
Yeah.
you had to connect with the first one, because that was a pain in the neck.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that I can put on my MetaQuest 2, no wires, and just do whatever. And yes, it doesn't look as good. And yes, I've thought about getting the MetaQuest 3, but again, I look at my MetaQuest 2 just like covered in dust
Yeah.
over in the corner being all
Yep.
sad. And I'm like,
Yep.
nope, I'm not spending $500 on a MetaQuest 3. I'm not doing it,
Yeah.
even though I'd
Exactly.
really like to. So, do you think maybe that like we're just have we reached like the pinnacle of VR now?
I don't know about the pinnacle. I think more and more people, especially with the Apple Vision that they
Mhm.
came out with, people are looking for that all-in-one.
Yeah.
I think VR set that isn't there yet. The Apple Vision is the combination of a lot of work load
Yeah.
that you can do on there, and it's meant to be a more professional use. Where the Quest is more for gaming and social usage. If you could combine the two a lot better, I think we'd actually see a lot, another type of renaissance with VR headsets. But
Yeah.
they're so hyper focused on each thing, and until you get to the point where we all see the videos where people are like running on those tracks kind of deal until they're affordable in your home. I think we've hit a plateau, but I think it
Yeah.
could it still be better.
There's stuff out there that intrigues me, like the MetaQuest 3. There's the I don't even know what the name of the app is, but you can literally sit down at a piano and it'll bring the notes down rock band style as
Yeah,
you're looking at the
exactly.
piano. Like that kind of stuff intrigues me, but not enough to spend $500.
Yeah, not enough to buy a whole new system for it.
I'm not doing it. But yeah, that was the last piece of news I had.
All right, so then we'll go ahead to games this week.
Hmm.
We'll get into the movies as I am finally free of my challenge, and I will go into that
Nice.
when we get into the movies. But I played more of MLB The Show 24
Okay.
and Princess Peach's Showtime.
Okay. I also played MLB The Show, and I also played Princess Peach, and then I also very early into Alone in the Dark, like
Alone in the
very
Dark.
early, because like I said, I really thought I was going to finish Final Fantasy this week. It didn't happen,
Gotcha, gotcha.
and you still haven't played it. Okay,
Not since I first started it. I am now free of my shackles, so
sure.
I do plan on starting it this week.
Okay,
Now, MLB The Show is what we'll jump into first, as we did
Schlongers.
mention her hitting meatballs out of the park here. My Road to the Show character has finally made it out of
Okay,
the Double A and Triple A. I am now officially on the Arizona Diamondbacks,
nice.
and I have to commend them. I'm still having a lot of fun with the game, but it's the little details. So my player hits his first home run, and the camera cuts to my player. He's in the dugout, and he's like looking to like high five people or dab people up, quote unquote, but
Hmm.
nobody's doing it. So
Oh,
my player looks around frustrated, and then they join in and celebrate with him. Like they did that on purpose.
okay.
It's these subtle little touches that I really like with MLB The Show. Now that I'm in the major leagues, like the presentation is a million times better, and I
Yeah,
think that's the whole goal. Is once you get up to the major leagues, you finally get the presentation, the really MLB authentic parks, between playing at Wrigley Field, Chase Field, Citizens Bank Field, any of those, all are quid pro quo what they look like in real life.
hmm.
And the detail really starts to come out. The announcers don't mess me up as a she anymore. The announcers properly call out what I hit, whether it's a single or a line out, double play, things like that. Now that I am in the show portion of things, it's still a lot of fun, and I'm still really enjoying what the show portion has to offer. When it comes to the other game modes, I really haven't played as much, but I know franchise is franchise. You can
Yeah.
either there is a really cool mechanism in franchise that allows you, it's called like custom gameplay settings, where you can set up situations like certain amount of games that can be simmed before you get physically involved with the team. So for example, if your team drops below 10 games over, 500,
Okay,
it'll stop simming and let you start to take over again.
that's really
Or,
smart.
yeah, or it just helps a lot with the simming. There's 182 games in a baseball schedule.
Yep.
And if in any way you can make it easier to sim the games that you probably don't really need to worry about, or if there is a game in a crucial moment, it'll stop the sim and it'll say, "Hey, you're at bottom of the 7th or bottom of the ninth here. Do you want to take over? And they'll show you the score. So it's things like that where it just makes the game so much more accessible instead of having, there's a lot of manual feedback when it comes to simming 182 games.
Yeah.
But with this setting, it makes it so much easier. It's a no-brainer, and I'm glad they added it. And with Diamond Dynasty, I'll get into this a little bit. I'm not going to play a lot of it, despite that I got a whole bunch of like good players for the fact that I bought the earlier edition of the game. Apparently, how they're working now is seasons, so there are certain cards that will not carry over to
Okay.
season 2, which I would feel a little weird about if there is apparently there and they are working on the system that allows you to carry cards from season to season to season, but you can only pick some, not all.
Okay.
So imagine you grinded, like, for example, one of the things that I have is like a 90 overall Chase Utley,
Hmm.
stuff like that. If I couldn't bring him to the season 2 of Diamond Dynasty, I'd feel gypped off,
Especially if
because
you
then
paid money.
exactly. So that's where things get a little tricky with Diamond Dynasty. That's one of the things where I don't want to get too into it, because how does that all work? And I might feel like I'm going to lose something, is what I'm afraid of. And those game modes are highly predatory and microtransactions, so I'm trying not to get too involved into it. But when it comes to Road to the Show and franchise, they are now more excellent than they ever have been before. And the Negro leagues that they've added, you get to highlight now women baseball players that were in the
Hmm.
Negro leagues, and just a bunch of players that you can now play as an unlocked for your Diamond Dynasty as well. It's really cool, the cut in between, kind of like how WWE 24 does it with
Hmm.
the WrestleMania series. It cuts in between live feed and gameplay when
Okay.
you mimic certain moments and things like that. It's a really well done process, and because they do it in seasons, you can complete season 1 of this, and then later this year we will see a season 2 of it. So it's kind of this added content that you don't have to pay for.
Okay. Interesting. It's kind of like NBA 2K does seasons with their
Yeah,
My Team, but you don't lose cards. And I don't even touch it anymore actually cuz I'm not falling
smart
down
move.
that rabbit hole.
Smart move.
Yeah. So the show for me, the first thing I wanted to point out was this is without a doubt the closest a face scan has ever gotten to getting me right. I don't know, did you face scan yourself in?
I did, but it looks terrible for me. I
Really?
might I might have to try
Okay.
it a couple more times.
Let me just because I'm so used to like every year with NBA 2K, they used to do it in like Madden, MLB the Show. I do it every year, and I'm like, that doesn't look like me, but whatever. I scanned this thing this year, and you put the app on your phone. I took
Yep.
one picture, and it was like, yeah, this is good, and I uploaded it, and I'm waiting, and it pops up on the game, and I was like, holy cow, that's me. Like I've never had it work that well. Like it got my facial hair, everything, and I was like,
Mm.
well done. So I was doing like the road to the show a little bit. I did like the like the combine type
Yeah.
stuff at
Yeah.
first. It's a lot of the same from last year. I made my two-way player this time, so I'm a pitcher and a shortstop, but also a power hitter because, of course, you got to hit those schlongers out of the park.
Yeah, you really took that one.
Yep,
Everyone
yep.
really likes the
The
slongers.
schlongers, you
Yeah,
know, when you get pitched a nice fat ravioli, you just want to smack it out of the park.
exactly.
Yeah, the pitching, I don't know if it's because of like if something changed or whatever, but last year pitching is like one of my favorite things to do in the game. I just think it's fun.
Yeah,
But I don't know if I changed the setting maybe, but for me pitching is like, all right, hit the button you want for whatever pitch. Okay, now where do you want it? And then hit the button again and then it pitches. I like the meter,
yeah,
and for whatever reason, it doesn't have that for me right now. And maybe I need to go in and adjust because I get a little bored now because I'm like, okay, hit the button. All right, I want it here. Hit the button again. And then it just goes there. It's not as much fun to me. So I think I need to kind of like adjust some stuff to get that
yeah.
fun
When
back.
when you first start the game, I think there's still a meter setting. I know there's a meter
Okay.
for throwing,
Yeah.
because I do the. It's not pulse pitching, but it's the outline of the pitch that you draw and then bring it down.
Okay.
I forget what that type of pitching they did is called, but there's pulse pitching, and I could have swore there was meter in there.
Okay.
I'll have to double check myself, and I'll let you
I just
know.
enjoy the meter one better. It like
Yeah,
when you're just like pushing a button, it just gets old real fast.
yeah.
But so far so good. Like I tend to burn out on the road to the show just because there's like so much dialogue and choices. And I'm just like, just let me play the games. This seems to streamline it a little bit better, I think.
I haven't had that many choices or anything
Okay.
like that.
In the
Like
past,
when
it was
okay.
overbearing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because when you're in the AA and AAA, like your manager will call you a couple
Mm-hmm.
times and ask, "Hey, are you happy with your position? Like, do you want to change?" Which I think is a nice idea.
Yep.
Instead of "Oh, I don't like playing center field." Instead of having to create a new character, you can change mid-season.
Right.
Or do you not like how much you're pitching? Do you want to focus more on batting? That kind
Mm-hmm.
of thing, especially with two-way players that we both created.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice to kind of be able to dial it in. I do wish I was pitching more, but it's a matter of finding that balance. And
Yeah.
when I inevitably create another character and in another position, I hope to be able to find that and figure out like what is the can I achieve the balance I'm looking for when it
Right.
comes to pitching and batting.
Yeah, they definitely seem to. I don't know if it's just because like your character is a low rating when you start, so they're like, why would I make them a starting pitcher when I have better pitchers? Maybe that's why. Like, I definitely feel like there could be more pitching, but I also enjoy the fact that like, all right, I'm gonna have like 3 at bats. All right, cool, that game's done. On to the next one, and it's just kind
Exactly.
of
Yeah.
like real
It's
quick.
really quick. It really
Yeah,
is.
because I think last year I didn't play Road to the Show at all. Last year I just stuck with straight like franchise Dynasty, and I didn't even make it through 182 games. But I was also not simming anything. I think I probably made it like 60 or 70 games in
Hmm.
before I was like, I'm I'm tapped out. So I do think I need to sim a little bit this year just so I don't get burned out. Because those games, like if you're playing and you're pitching, you're batting, and doing all that, like they take like 45 minutes to an hour.
Yeah. And that's what I kind of like with I'm batting a lot more, and when you're batting in these games, like they take the batting doesn't take long. It
Yep.
takes you to the moments where you're batting or you're an integral part in each or in a play.
Yep.
And I have games that take me 5 minutes,
Yep.
but it's always the pitching ones where I have to be in the mood or have the time to be able to pitch an entire game. Or
Yep.
some you can also sim them, and then
Yep.
if things start to get out of hand, you can always go back and start to take control of the player again. But this is the farthest I've made it in the show in quite some time, and I think that's due to the fact that I'm still having fun with it. It doesn't feel like a chore just
Yeah.
yet, and that's probably because I've been batting so much and not pitching as much. Like my player pitches like I think once every 3 weeks or
Oh, okay.
something like that, so I can get through a hell of a ton of games. And then
Yeah.
there's one game that I know that's going to be like, okay, this is going to take me, half an hour or something like that in order to get through. But then those
Hmm.
games feel like rewarding because while I'm not pitching all the time, those games I want to try hard at pitching and that kind of thing.
Yeah. But yeah. So far, what I've played, I'm enjoying. Um, I don't see a whole lot that's changed over last year, but I really enjoyed it last year, so I don't think they need to. Um, but I'm not gonna lie, like I'm looking at this stuff and I'm just like, man, I just want college football so bad.
College football will be fun. That's
Can't get here soon enough.
yeah. I keep thinking about the sales number that game's going to do, and it's going to be nuts.
Yeah, it
Or
is
that's going to be one of those games where they better have hundreds of those copies ready,
for
especially in a
sure.
college town like we live in. It's going
Yep.
to be bought.
Yep.
But do you want to go into Alone in the Dark before we
Sure.
get into Princess
Yeah.
Peach?
So Alone in the Dark. I've been excited for this game. I watched a couple of reviews before it came out this week, and I'm not gonna lie, a lot of them were kind of meh on it. But I'm only like an hour into the game now. To be fair, from what I've heard, it's about a 7 to 8 hour game. It's real short.
Yeah.
Presentation style, I think we're so used to Resident Evil and like top tier horror that like when another game comes out like it, which this is, the presentation is not as good. A lot of it is the same. It's like, all right, I'm going in this house. This door's locked. All right, now I need to find this door, a key, but I need to figure out this puzzle to get that key. It's a lot of that, which I like. Like that's what I like about horror games is like the puzzles and walking around the buildings and stuff. So that's all fun. I think it's done well. I just haven't really like gotten enough into it. Like the jump scares are there, which is what you want. You can tell it's not going to be like, oh my God, this is like last year where this is Resident Evil, like top 5 game of the year for me. I don't even know if it'll
Mm,
make top 10 unless it changes. But as of
yeah.
right now, I'm like, it's good enough that I'll play through it. But I don't know if it'll end up in a top 10 scenario at the end of the year.
Yeah, did they in the first Alone in the Dark, and who's the
Yeah.
character that they modeled the one guy after? The one
The
from
new one,
Stranger Things? Yeah.
David Harbour.
So David Harbour, he wasn't a model or anything in the first game, was he? They
No, because the original's like old.
Yeah, does he have a connection to this game in some sort, or did he just
No, I don't think so. It's just you get to choose when you start the game. You either play as the male or female
Mhm.
protagonist. And what's nice is like because the game's short, the emphasis is that you play through it twice. Kind of like
Yeah,
Resident Evil 2
2.
with Claire and them. So like you're getting two different campaigns, slightly different where you go. So it's just David Harbour, and I forget the woman's name who is the actress, but she's pretty famous too. I think
Oh, okay.
they just picked like pretty well known actors and actresses to be like, hey, let's get them. So people may not know what Alone in the Dark is, or maybe too young to know that that was a game in the past, but they'll know who David Harbour is
Yeah,
and be like, oh,
okay.
it's the Stranger Things guy. I'll play that
Yeah.
game. Yeah, I think that's what they're going for.
Gotcha. So Princess Peach Showtime
Yeah,
is next up.
yeah.
Princess Peach Showtime. So I guess I'll talk about the good before I kind of get into uh probably what most people think about the game.
Mm-hmm.
Princess Peach Showtime is definitely a kids game.
Yep.
It's meant to be someone's kind of first foray to say into gaming. This Princess Peach game is a little bit of sword fighting, martial arts, a little bit rhythm, a little bit of timing. It is meant to introduce you to a ton of genres, and I think that this game does a really good job of that. The act ones, show you this kind of performance. It's this almost low budget show you're going to see where
Yep.
Peach is always center stage and she's switching characters and switching her powers out. And I really like what I've been playing of this game. The the act twos are shorter than act one, which I didn't realize until you get out of the demo phase for this game. But I like what they're doing with this. I really hope that this like brings about more Princess Peach games, as it feels like Nintendo is trying to push this character more. So it's more, maybe Mario and Princess Peach. It's still for me. A lot of it has to do with the performance of the original Switch systems.
Yep.
Like this game would probably run and look so much better on a Switch 2. We're constantly having frame rate drops, constantly. I haven't had crashing, but I just imagine what this game could be if
Yep.
the Switch 2 was more capable of running these games. And this game, I'm constantly seeing these frame rate issues, and it's like, you know what, I'm kind of done with this. We really should have a
Yep.
Switch 2 out by now, and these games should be running just fine on it. But it just goes to show how dated the system is, and the fact that Nintendo's taken so long to make a new system. This is why everybody's just kind of clamoring for it, and Nintendo's probably doing this on purpose. To be fair, they want everybody clamoring for this next system, so that way when they release it, everyone buys it. It's
Yeah.
easy consumerism at this point. But I just feel like it ends up hurting this game, especially if like kids aren't going to care. Of course,
Right.
they aren't going to care that the Peach is moving at a lower frame rate or anything like that. It's not a type of game that needs every single frame to count, but it's just something where it's in today's games there is an expectiveness of smoothness that
Yep.
you expect to see in your games these days. And I'm playing on the OLED, so it is a slightly better version of the OG one, and it's still having issues, and it's kind of unacceptable at this point.
Yeah, I'm playing on an OG and it's rough.
Yeah,
I don't like I'm just so indifferent about this game, really. I'm just kind of like, okay, it's a game. Like I don't hate it, but like my desire, it's not a game, it's not Final Fantasy where I'm like, oh my god, I can't wait to play that game.
yeah,
I'm just
yeah.
like, oh, I could play a level, I guess. Or I'll play like one of them and I'll be like, I'm done. But I'll come
Yeah.
back to you. I don't even know if I'm going to finish it. That's
It's not a long game. It's only
yeah.
about 8 hours. So
Okay.
along with Alone in the Dark, and you don't even have to play this twice.
True. Yeah.
Once you're done with it, you're probably done with it. So I'm glad it is a shorter game, especially for what this game is trying to do.
Hmm.
And I do admit that I'm an adult trying to give a review of a children's game, where for children it's going to matter like the sense of accomplishment you get, the sense of how much fun is the game for them to play, and how easy it is for them to grasp the
Yeah.
controls, which I think it does a very, very good job of. Which is why like I'm trying to remove the adult in me for
True.
this game, and I can see where a lot of kids will have a lot of enjoyment in it. And just like a leading, very well known female character. So, if you're trying to
Yeah.
get girls to play more video games, just like with it, I feel like girls are going to be like, oh, that's a Princess Peach game. I don't have to play as that stupid plumber Mario. Like, yeah, they're going to want to do that.
True. Yeah. I guess every time I play a first party Nintendo game, if I'm not enjoying it or if I'm kind of indifferent about it, my mind immediately goes like, I could just be playing a Mario game.
Yeah.
Because they're usually done better. But yeah, I appreciate what they're trying to do for sure. It's different, and I'm okay with them taking chances.
All right. Do we get into it?
Let's do it.
Movies this week. I have finally finished my 3-week quest of watching all
It only took you 3
24.
weeks. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
all 24 Pokemon movies.
Mm-hmm.
And to add on to that, I watched the newest season of Pokemon Horizons just because I was on a roll. I couldn't. I
Okay.
just felt like I had to get it done. But what did you watch?
Okay. So I watched a couple movies and one TV show. I watched Monolith, and then I watched Madam Web, and
Okay.
then I followed that up with some Argylle.
Okay.
And then to cleanse my palate, I watched the first 2 available episodes of X-Men 97.
Oh, I need to start that. I've been meaning to start the X-Men series. All right. I guess the question is, how do we want to do this? Do we want to?
However you want.
Here's what we'll do. I will go into my bottom set of the Pokemon
Okay.
movies.
Yep.
And then I will leave the top, let's say 10.
Okay.
Until after you're done talking about Madam Web, Monolith,
Okay.
and Argylle.
All right, I got you. Yep.
So here we go. Quick synopsis of these movies as I rank them. In last place, I have Mewtwo Strikes Back Evolution. Main thing is this movie did not need to be made. It is an exact replica of what Pokemon the first movie is that we all watched in 1999 or whenever the heck that came out. It is just a CGI recreation, and it did not offer anything new of sorts. If you are a kid who maybe has never watched the first one and the animation's too old for them, or like they don't like how it looks, I guess you could show them this, but I still think the original is pretty much better in every way. This movie did not need to be made.
Fair.
All right. Next up is Pokemon and the Swords of Kyurem and the Swords of Justice. This one's a weird movie as it doesn't center really around Ash. Like Ash and the Pokemon are a side story to this, is what I guess I'll say. It's more about the legendary Pokemon Kyurem earning his Sword of Justice, quote unquote, by facing or trying to defeat Kyurem when he's clearly not ready to. It's kind of a typical, kid says he's ready to do this sort of thing. He ends up trying to do it and fails miserably. And ends up causing a lot of trouble for everybody else. It's a strange movie. I didn't much like it. I do want to preface this as every Pokemon like movie review thing that I've watched, Pokemon movies are everywhere. I feel like if your favorite Pokemon or favorite legendary isn't in it, you don't like it. Is how I feel about this. I have read too many ranking lists when making my own. To kind of decide where and how I thought about these movies. So just keep that in mind. This is the definitive list, though. If you're looking for the best Pokemon movies, you look at my list. There is no other list to look at.
Yep, this is it.
And I guess the top 10 will probably count as our TikTok segment of the week as well.
There you go.
All right, and now the next one is kind of a confusing one. Pokemon Black and White, Victini and Reshiram and Zekrom. These are two separate movies with pretty much the same thing being said in each of them. It is the strangest decision to do this, but there's very slight differences between the two, whether it's the villain's Pokemon is something else instead of this,
Okay.
or for example, the legendary that Ash gets to, get to ride on and talk to and that kind of thing is either Reshiram or Zekrom. And these movies just changed out the legendary that Ash gets toward the end. It is such a
Okay.
strange move,
Just
but
like the game.
yeah, but it's funny for me because in the box, like now that I have all the DVDs and Blu-rays in the box, they group them as one movie, and I was like, I don't know why they did this. So I get like 15 minutes into Pokemon Black, and I
Mhm.
I literally said this is the same movie. I don't need to waste my time doing this. As I
Is it
as I
literally like the same movie? Like the
yes,
same
yes,
scenes and everything?
yes. It's just that
Okay.
there are certain Pokemon that are changed out
Okay.
for another. That's literally it. It is the same exact movie, same exact plot line.
Hmm.
I watched this movie on 4 times. Fast forward. That is what
Okay.
I will say because I
Fair.
looked for something different, but it is not there.
Okay. Yeah, that's an interesting choice to do it like the games.
Yeah. Next up for me is Genesect movie with Mewtwo,
Okay.
as this also deals with a movie that really isn't about Ash and the gang. It's more about Mewtwo Mega and his Mega Evolution and the Genesect who are looking to go home or find a place to go home. The big character thing with this is that both Mewtwo and Genesect are man-made Pokemon, quote unquote. So it's more about having a home and how do you fit into life as you are a man-made Pokemon. Uh, Again, not my favorite. We stare at the bottom of the tier list here as we continue to go on. Pokemon Destiny Deoxys, probably the one that I'm going to get the most flack for, as most people have this up on their list. I just found this movie incredibly boring.
Okay.
Uh, all it is Rayquaza. It's pretty much a really long fight, is what it is, and some people will like that. Not a lot of
Mhm.
talking, just a lot of action in their movie. Where Rayquaza thinks Deoxys is in its territory, so they fight.
Okay.
Uh, and Deoxys ends up getting put into a river for thousands of years, and now it reawakens and it thinks it's trying to fight Rayquaza. And then the moment it wakes up, Rayquaza senses it wakes up and then tries to kill each other. It's pretty much how this movie goes. It
Okay.
is again. I just found this one incredibly boring.
Okay.
We
Fair.
then have Arceus and the Jewel of Life. You'd think this movie would be better because it is the god of quote unquote of all Pokemon. What ends up being is there's time travel in this movie where the legendary Pokemon Dialga sends Ash and the group into the past in order to fix something in the future and make it so that Arceus isn't angry at them anymore. Uh, it's this one, and what I'll say is this movie has a lot more talking than I'd like. I'm trying to look for a balance of fighting and talking.
Sure.
Once they get into the the past, it's a lot of talking and expedition dumping, where you tend to lose me when the movie that a kids movie is a lot about exposition dumping and not really moving the plot along.
Okay.
You're following along so far? Is
No, I was trying to look at as you say them, I'm pulling them up to see if I recognize like the cover.
okay.
But I
A
have
lot.
not.
A
I did
lot of
not
these you may.
recognize that one.
Yeah, a lot of these you may not. As we
Yeah.
once I get into the older ones, which obviously are a little bit higher on my list, you'll see there. But like the only one that I've mentioned that is older out of all of these is the Destiny Deoxys one. It
Okay.
is one of the first 7 made. Uh,
Yeah, I
next
didn't
up on my
recognize that one though.
next up on my list is Pokemon Ranger and the Temple of the Sea. This one deals with Manaphy, and it shouldn't even be Pokemon Ranger. Do you know the Pokemon Ranger series at all?
I
It
don't
was a
think so.
it was a DS Pokemon series of games where the whole goal, instead of like collecting and battling Pokemon, was to catch them by drawing circles around them over and over and over again on the bottom screen
Okay.
of the DS.
I do remember
Uh,
that. Yep.
these were fun games,
Mm-hmm.
but this movie doesn't really deal with a lot. Like all there is a Pokemon Ranger in this game. The whole point is that the legendary Pokemon Manaphy needs to be brought to the Sea Temple,
Okay.
so that it can man, I was about to say these movies are all starting to blur together now. Uh,
I
but
don't know
it
how you're
is.
keeping them straight.
But I'll put it this way: if Manaphy does not get to the Sea Temple, something bad happens in the movie, and the
Okay.
Sea Temple will then crash. And there are these people who want to guard the Sea Temple from crashing.
Okay.
The big villain is a pirate because he wants to go collect the Crown of the Sea, which is just a bunch
Sure
of
he
these
does.
crystals. Uh, this movie, like it sort of starts to get into the movies that I liked, just
Okay.
because I did enjoy. There's a moment where Ash pretty much becomes a god, and just starts and literally gets superpowers. He starts
Okay.
flying around. He starts going hundreds of miles an hour in the sea after doing this. But it's one of those scenes you might have seen on TikTok where he locks May in a cage so that she doesn't drown, and then Ash literally is able to breathe underwater for 30 minutes straight. Uh, Dude's got a
What?
set of lungs on him.
Okay.
I know that I'm probably explaining this to you, and you're just like, "What is going on?"
Yeah, that's a lot. That's not the
Yeah,
Ash I know.
yeah. But I like this movie. There is like a
Okay.
weird like babying of Pokemon where May, the one character, like she cares way too much about Manaphy. Treats it like a real child in a way where she does not want Manaphy to go out into the world. And again, these are kids movies, and I guess you're trying to make something for the adults here. But for me, as a neither a parent and neither a kid anymore, I kind of just found it a little creepy. I guess I'm in that
Sure.
stage.
Sure.
Next one up, another older one, is Pokemon Heroes. This is when Ash and the gang go to Italy, and the two legendary Pokemon here are Latios and Latias. Pretty much the main thing is that the villain is trying to get a hold of a city destroying machine, and it's kind of funny how close it sits to Italy, because is one of those cities that's so close to drowning.
Yeah.
If a glacier melts or something like that, this takes it up a step of what if there was a machine that could make Italy drown? That's the step it takes.
Okay.
And, the two Pokemon end up saving the town after the people get a hold of the town-ending machine.
This
And man,
one, this one's sitting at a phenomenal 19% on Rotten Tomato and 27% on Metacritic.
look, these movies are everywhere when it comes to their ratings. It is,
Yeah.
again, I did not expect this much like disarrangement when it comes to Pokemon movies. Like Heroes is something that some people love. Like they love this, and it's a matter of I guess if your legendaries in it, and if you like the plot of the movie,
Sure.
I guess.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Next one of the older movies is Jirachi. Jirachi Wishmaker is the next one.
Yes.
Pretty much what ends up happening here is Jirachi is a Pokemon that's been asleep for thousands of years, finally wakes up during this 1 in 1,000 year comet that goes over, and Jirachi's meant to absorb the power from the comet and then go to sleep for another 1,000 years, so it then disperses the energy back
No.
into the earth.
Oh my God. You could be making this up and nobody would know.
Yeah, it's starting to become funny to me is how ridiculous all of these plots
Every
are.
time you're telling these plots, I'm like, yeah, that's a thing. You could just say whatever and I would believe you at this point. Be like,
Trust
the
me.
next one, he opens a deli. And
Let me. But just wait till I get to the next one. The next
Oh
one's a
my
little
God.
strange too. They're all strange. But pretty much what ends up happening is a fake version of Groudon. This ends up being kind of a Princess Mononoke it ends up summoning this giant goo monster that tries to absorb all these people and ends up killing life as we know it on the planet until eventually the villain turns, which a lot of these movies eventually have. Oh no, what did I do wrong? I gotta be the good guy now, and then the good guy dies. Or sorry, no, the villain ends up dying as in a sacrificial way at the end. So
Yes.
Interesting movie. Again, there are these 4 Miramax movies that don't really go well on my list. I don't like them.
Okay.
I have fond memories of these movies, but now watching them almost 20 years later, they don't hold up as well as you'd think. Next one is one of the newer ones available on Netflix, Secret of the Jungle. It's one that's kind of in between the Sun and Moon games, but this movie is literally a combination of the plots of Tarzan and Avatar. The first Avatar movie.
Okay.
Literally, it is insane how the plot mirrors. Uh, Parents end up getting killed in a car accident. That's Pokemon's now getting into car accidents and them killing parents.
Okay.
Baby ends up in the jungle. Pokemon named Zarude ends up taking care of the kid. Therefore, we now have Coco, the Tarzan man, is literally what this is. And then the bad people are people trying to take what's called the heart of the forest, and it's trying, much like in Avatar, where they want all the metals in the heart of the forest as well in that movie, and it kind of just slaps the two together.
Okay.
That's probably the most like coherent plot you've probably heard of so far.
Yeah, that one actually isn't too bad.
Yeah,
it sounds like a Disney movie.
Yeah. In a lot of ways, it is. And again, we're starting to get into the territory of I actually like these movies.
Okay.
Pokemon Forever is the next one. The last one of the 4 after the original 3. I could have swore this one was my favorite, but after watching it some 20 years later again, it doesn't hold up as well as I thought. I do like Celebi, the legendary, the wood sprite, as she kind of is a time traveler, and in this movie, it ends up. I
remember this movie.
It's kind of crazy. It ends up taking Professor Oak as a child into the present where Ash is, and those two work together. Ash never figures out it's Professor Oak, but then in the movie, Oak recognizes that he set this all up. Let's be honest here. The reason Ash has a Pikachu is because Professor Oak time traveled and knew that was his partner Pokemon. So even if Ash wasn't late in the first episode, he was getting Pikachu.
Fair.
That's how this works. Not a bad movie. It's pretty good. I like the whole darkness Pokemon where they're capturing them in these dark balls, and they're pretty much maxed out evil Pokemon. In the end, you get a really cool Tyranitar and Onix fight scene that I really enjoyed. And other than the CG monstrosity that is Celebi controlling this, what is a kaiju made of wooden sticks and tree branches, it's a pretty good movie. I like this one. Again, deforestation is bad. That's the plot of this movie. Deforestation, you don't want to do it. All right, we're finally getting close to the top 10, guys. I promise. Next one up is Rise of Darkrai. This movie is the first one in what the Diamond and Pearl series, where all 4 movies are connected in a way.
Okay.
So this one talks about the Legend of Darkrai, where again, these movies were kind of tough to get through, but the battle sequences were good enough where Dialga and Palkia are fighting each other. They end up fighting into Ash's world wherever they're visiting, because the plot revolves around Ash and everything happens around Ash. And the main thing here is Darkrai is trying to settle those two down so they don't tear space and time apart as we know it.
Okay.
It's one of these weird ones where they gave Darkrai legs. It's really strange. It's like 2 big pointy feet, and he's like standing 7 feet, like 17 feet tall. It's a strange movie. All right. My first one right outside the top 10 of the OGs is Pokemon the Mewtwo Strikes Back, the first one from 1999.
Okay.
I hold this movie in very high regard, as it has some of the best philosophical moments, even still 20 years later, for this one. And they've zoomed over my head as a kid, but probably my poor father, who had to take me to go see these, probably understood the message better than I did. I just cared about the Pokemon. Overall, it's right outside the top 10 because it is a little bit of a snooze fest until the fight scene at the end where Mewtwo and them are fighting. Ash gets turned to stone. Pikachu ends up crying. They all end up crying. And Ash comes to life and then settles the beef between Mew and Mewtwo.
Yep. Classic.
Yeah, classic movie right outside of the top 10. It does deserve it. All right, next up for me and this would be number 11
Okay.
would be Zoroark, Master of Illusions. Pretty much this one is about a guy who wants to take control of Celebi's time traveling mechanic. So he tries to use Zoroark, who his whole thing is being an illusionist. So he ends up this Pokemon ends up, being controlled by the bad person, even though they're not bad people, to go and destroy this town to evacuate the town so that the villain can take control of Celebi's time traveling properties through a ripple in time is what they call it. It's something you stick your hand into and he gets the power. Again, plot is insane.
That's
Uh,
Pokemon.
I did like this one though. These again, and now I'm starting to get into the ones I genuinely like. There's the three legendary dogs. They're both all three of them are kind of cool. What they do with the illusions and that kind of thing is also impressive. And I just like this movie. This one was pretty good. Okay, that is 24 through 11,
It's a lot of
or
movies.
25 through 11. Yeah. I can't believe I remembered the plot of
Yeah,
all
that's
of these
surprising.
movies.
I don't know how that doesn't all just blur together. Be like, this one had Pokemon in it in
I paid it.
force.
I paid attention to these. Like I didn't look at my phone. I watched them. That's why my list is definitive. And these
Okay.
top 10, once we get into them, will be the definitive top 10. There is
That's fair.
there is no mistake.
These are the ones.
These are the ones.
All right.
Now give me a break.
Okay. Yeah, I'll give you a break. Okay. So I'll start with Monolith. It's still fresh in my head. I watched it last night. This was an interesting movie. It has to deal with a woman who has a podcast. Now, this movie is entirely done by this one person in her house by herself. That's it. So you have to there's something to be said for movies where it's like one set, one person, like it either works or it doesn't. So for
Your
me,
cat.
yeah, I know my cat just all right, it's here. So she has a podcast. She's investigating this thing where people have this brick. And she's talking to this person who has this brick and they don't know what it is. They think it's alien. And she puts this podcast out and then she starts getting all these replies being like, I have this
Your
brick
cat's
too.
playing with something.
Yep.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure is it something she should be.
We're good.
Okay.
So she starts getting all these messages of like, hey, like I have this brick too. And it just kind of goes from there. It has it's just a movie that kind of makes you feel like you're trying to figure out what's happening. Right. I wouldn't say it's like phenomenal. I enjoyed it. It's short, another hour and a half movie, but I just enjoy when they like go for something out there that's weird, just like not something you would see every day. So that's Monolith. It's not good. Madam Web, baby.
Oh yes, Madam Web. Here we go.
That movie sucks. I was waiting for like some redeeming qualities. Number one, I don't know.
Sweeney's in it. That's redeeming.
She's terrible. Number one, I don't know his name, but the guy playing the villain is one of the worst actors I've ever seen in my life. That dude is awful.
Did you have the lip syncing issue that
Yeah.
I saw? Yeah, at least it looked like it.
And he's oh my god, he's a terrible actor. Everybody in this movie is a terrible actor for the most part, except for like some of the side characters that are in there for like 10 minutes. You weren't kidding that you only see them in the suits for like that one flashback. I don't even think the whole Madam Web powers are that interesting. I just thought I sat through the whole thing. I watched it. But boy, I don't need to watch that again. I'd rather watch Morbius than Madam Web. That movie sucks. It just seemed like nobody wanted to be there.
Yeah,
is that accurate?
That's what it seems like. And on top of that, too, like all of the comments that have come out from the actors and actresses,
yep,
from this were all like, "Oh, it was a way to build my career," or "They paid me a lot of money," or "I had an opportunity to be in a quote unquote Marvel movie." It was kind of the opportunity there for them, and apparently for Sydney Sweeney even mentioned that for her it was making connections in Sony.
Right.
And it's one of these things where okay, like I guess I get it, but I guess Sony was just willing to pay anybody to be in this movie, no matter what it turned out to be.
What I do want is I want a documentary on this movie being made, because all the stuff we heard, right? Like, oh, they filmed scenes with Spider-Man and then they decided to cut it. Why? You know what I mean? Like, these decisions that were made for this movie are so baffling to me. Like, you decided to film scenes with Spider-Man and then we don't need it. Nah. Like, that's your Spider-Man is what's keeping Sony movies afloat. It's the Spider-Man movies.
Yeah,
And to
yeah,
not include him in this and to put this just I would could call him generic Spider-Man as the villain, right? He's
yeah.
just generic Spider-Man who can poison people. I Oh my god. Every decision is just stupid. It's just stupid. Yeah, don't watch that movie. It sucks. Okay, Argylle. Not quite as bad, but this movie still sucks. Here's the thing. It has its moments. It
Yeah,
really does. I would watch a movie with Henry Cavill and John Cena
yeah.
as like a buddy cop. Like, I enjoyed that a lot. The story itself is fine. I don't have a problem with the story. I just that is some of the worst CGI I've seen in a long time. In a long time. And I had read stuff about like one of those ending fight scenes, but boy was I not prepared for the ice skating on oil. And
I did
boy
tell
is
you.
it
Yeah,
stupid.
yeah. I did tell you the ice skating on oil was quite
Oh my god, is it bad? I don't know, like, you have all these people in this movie who can act, and like all of these people, and it would have been a fine movie, but every single scene with this like insanely poorly done CGI just killed me. And then to end it all with that ice skating on oil and just the most awful looking CGI of her skating around. Oh boy, that, that's a choice. They didn't even bother to try to get like a real cat for some of those scenes. Didn't even bother. Like, even the ones where they like pick it up. Would you not just use a real cat? Why? Why are you? Oh man,
again.
that
That movie
movie's
is a trip. That is a
it's
trip of a
wild.
movie.
Who greenlit that movie? What is happening in that movie?
Yeah, yeah.
I would rather watch that than Madam Web, but I don't ever want to watch Argyle again. No, no,
I'll
no.
watch it for Dua Lipa.
Oh my god, she's in it for 30 seconds.
That's all I need. Just like with Barbie.
Okay, and then X-Men 97. First two episodes are out. X-Men, the cartoon, is a huge part of my childhood, so of course I was ready to go for this one. The theme song still slaps. The animation style is still that 90s style animation where it's not like the smoothest animation you've seen, but for me, I'm like, that's what I want. As far as I can tell, and I didn't double check, so I may be wrong, I think all the voice actors are back. I think.
Oh, okay.
I think it's really good. They're doing a good job. It's exactly what I wanted, and I will be watching every single episode of that for sure.
Yeah,
Unlike
I'm
Madam
excited
Web.
to start it. Yeah, I'm excited to start it. All right, the moment you've all been waiting
Yeah.
for. You guys got through 20, 24, 25 through 11. It's now the top 10. Let's
Mm-hmm.
go to the top 10, baby. First one to start it up. It was Giratina and the Sky Warrior.
That's a title.
Is this movie? This one is a little bit is also one of kind of the newer ones in the Diamond and Pearl
Okay.
franchise. But this movie really good. Had a lot of good, and I know at 10 I'm saying really good, but you'll see what I mean in the other movies. This movie has a really good balance of exposition and good balance of action. You know, Giratina is an awesome legendary, and they end up mixing it with Shaman, who is this purifier Pokemon that ends up, helps purify and purifying the air is pretty much what this Pokemon does. So sucks in smoke and then does what's called a seed bomb, and it's a huge explosion. Uh, Giratina's pissed because it's tracking the reverse world, or the version of like an underworld sort of thing, because Dialga has it stuck in a time loop. So the whole point is to get it free, so that way the villain can control this reverse world. Is the big thing there. The villain has a big mech fight. It's kind of cool with ends up, and then they end up like befriending Giratina as well. It's one of
Of
these
course.
things where Ash ends up befriending the legendary, and it just kicks ass. I like this one. This one's fun.
Okay.
We then have Volcanion and the Mechanical Marvel. So what it is
These
Volcanion
titles, man.
is this one's more about and revolving around Mega Evolution, which is what I liked. It's the best gimmick in Pokemon.
Okay.
And Volcanion, who is like the steam engine Pokemon, and oh man, I can't believe I forgot the other legendary. It's the steel one. I'm gonna have to look this up here in just a second. But it's more about this movie. What they want to do is they end up wanting to take Megania. That's the name. Magernia.
Okay.
That's what this legendary's name is. It has something called the Soul Heart, which could revive another world-destroying machine. But it technically kills the Pokemon in a way. It pretty much the Soul Heart is what powers the Death Star. If I had to draw any
Okay.
conclusions to it, so the whole thing is that the villains are trying to get Magernia so they can get the Soul Heart to power the Death Star. That's literally what I'm going to call it from now on. And the whole point is that Magernia's soul still lives in it. So the villain ends up being destroyed because like it's aiming at Magernia's home. It's going to destroy it, but through its soul, it's like crying, it's paining, it's all of this crying Pokemon sounds all over it, and it won't shoot the home. But I
Okay.
like this one because it has really good action scenes. Again, Mega Evolution. Zygarde, the legendary from Z, comes into play, ends up saving the day, doing some cool stuff. This movie also really good balance of exposition and fighting scenes.
Okay.
I think, is this the newest? No, the Secrets of the Jungle was the last one, or the newest one out of all of these. The next one is Pokemon I Choose You. It is a retelling of the first couple episodes. What I liked about it is this. You never got more about Ho-Oh after seeing it in the first episode of the first Pokemon game or first Pokemon television show. And this kind of rewrites the history and explains, the little journey he went on after Pikachu not sacrificed itself, but destroyed all those Spearow. It doesn't follow like the regular crew. It follows two other, one that wants to be a professor, one that misses home, I guess is what I'd call it. But this movie has a lot of good action, a lot of good fun. It made me go through the the Butterfree goodbye scene again. That was totally not needed, but it's one of the best OG episodes of Pokemon that it recalls, and I like that. This one is kind of if you hadn't seen Pokemon or hadn't seen the first couple episodes, this is a retelling of that in a cool way, and I think that they did a good job.
Okay.
The next one is one of the most highly rated Pokemon movies of all time,
All right.
Lucario and the Mystery of Mew.
Mm-hmm.
This one, it's a very simple plot. What ends up happening is they go over this like 1,000-year war that took place with Lucario and his master. The master seals Lucario in a staff to go sacrifice himself to save the kingdom. Thousands of years later, Mew, who is this playful Pokemon, ends up, and I don't know if it's the word accidentally, stealing Meowth and Pikachu. And Lucario gets out of the staff and completely mistrusts and does not like humans because his master sealed him in a staff for thousands of years. And Ash apparently resembles the master, because of course he does.
Of course.
Pretty much the whole thing is going to get Pikachu and Mew, and again, it's actually an interesting story. Probably the first interesting story I'll throw in there. Like, it's kind of original, it's fun to watch, and you get a bunch of fight scenes with like the Regigigas, like Reggie Ice, Reggie Steel, Reggie Rock, and they're protecting this tree because it sees the humans as invaders. Because again, humans are terrible people, and Pokemon are the only pure things in the world. Is pretty
Of
much what a
course.
lot of these movies have. Yeah, Pokemon are incapable of lying where humans can because they're Pokemon are animals in a way. All right. Next one we have is Pokemon Deontay and the Cocoon of Destruction. Another fun movie about mega evolution. Deontay is a legendary that needs to produce this crystal in order to save her kingdom, but she needs the power of the legendary Xerneas to do so. So it's kind of a journey movie, a la Lord of the Rings, to go find Xerneas to get the power to create the crystal to save the kingdom.
Yep.
What a plot! Um,
Yep.
I kind of like. I surprisingly like this one, even though it's very highly like. It's not very highly liked
Okay.
in most of the Pokemon movies, but I like Deontay. It's kind of like the guide the princess to her destination sort of movie, where Deontay is this, uh, albeit oblivious to mostly everything going on, and she ends up like needing Ash and the gang's help to find Xerneas. Finds Xerneas. The big evil here is Yveltal and the Cocoon of Destruction. Wakes up from this cocoon and just ends up destroying, half the forest. And it takes Deontay and the gang and Xerneas to stop Yveltal from destroying the world.
Oh, okay. I've been going through and trying to remember, like, because there was a time when my kid watched a bunch of these, and a lot of these I remember, but that one I do not.
Nice. Okay. All right, top five. You
All right.
guys made it. Top five. If anybody's still listening to this, again, this is the definitive Pokemon list. These are the five you're going to watch if you're a Pokemon master. That's what I'll call it. Number five is where Detective Pikachu lands.
Okay.
Uh, Detective Pikachu is probably one of the more. It does not follow Ash and the gang, but takes place in the Pokemon universe. A live-action Pokemon movie, which I did not have high hopes for, but still is entertaining and fun to this day. All of the actors do a really good job. Actors that like Justice Smith that we know are in this movie, and Ryan Reynolds does a really good job of playing a Detective Pikachu. Surprisingly, we probably won't get another one. So just because of how bad Detective Pikachu Returns was,
Yeah.
but will we get another Pokemon movie? And just in general is the question. But Detective Pikachu is where this one lands.
Okay.
Did you expect it to be higher?
No, I didn't, because I know
Okay.
which ones are still left.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Next one is Pokemon. Oh boy, if the title's cut off. Darn it. Sorry, I have it in like a ranking. Let's see here. The next one is Pokemon the movie Hoopa and the Class of Ages. Now, what's really fun about this one is this is a full-on legendaries battle. Hoopa ends up like the whole thing is Hoopa gets sealed away. Hoopa's evil intentions get sealed away in a bottle. For thousands of laters, those evil intentions end up being released, and it tries to destroy the city. This is
Yep.
one of those movies where, like, how are there not hundreds of thousands of casualties as buildings are being blown up? These
Yep.
gigantic Pokemon are running in. They don't talk about the casualties in this, much like a lot of superhero movies destroying a city. What I like about this one is that it is a full-on legendaries battle. Almost every single legendary you can imagine is in here, and it is just a fun action fest.
Yep.
If I have to recommend any of them as like an action movie fest, it's going to be this one and another one that I'll mention later. But this is like a recent one where,
Yeah, I think this is the one we watched the most.
yeah, just because of like all of the legendaries, you got primal versions of Kyogre and Groudon. They're
Yep.
mega evolving as well. Latios, and Rayquaza. It is a fun action fest movie. And again, all of these legendaries in the same place end up destroying the fabric of time and space as we know it, and it takes Arceus to come and save everyone. Another fun plot line. All right, top three. We made it. Top
Yep.
three. If you know what's left, you're probably going to know what's going on here. So number three on my list is actually one of the newer ones, Pokemon and the Power of Us. This is one of the much very newer ones where it's right after they changed the art style, which was really a nice refresher for me, let me tell you. Um, Ash and the Pokemon look different, and I really like the characters that are in this. Rise, Ash, Eevee, Pikachu. The action scenes are incredible in it as well. The legendary Pokemon in this one is like Zorora. That one's a hard name to pronounce, but it's like the lightning quick Pokemon, and his action scenes are actually very very well done. He steals the show every time he's on the screen that I really like. But his whole thing is again humans hurt him in the past, destroyed the forest thousands or hundreds of years ago to build this city, so now he distrusts humans. And again, humans are capable of lies, and Pokemon are not. So it
Yep.
takes Ash getting hit by what is probably zillions of electrical volts and survives. And Zora's like, you know what, you're not a bad guy. I trust humans again, which is probably gonna, as humans go in all of these movies, we'll end up hurting them in the future, as humans will inevitably betray them again. But I really like this one. This one also isn't very. I think this is one of the better received ones, and the art style is just so much better. I really enjoyed the refresh of art styles. Top two, and if you know what's left, these two are very close to my heart. Nostalgia out of the way, these two movies stand up. Number two for me is Pokemon 2000.
Okay.
I probably don't need to explain the plots of these ones, but Ash is the chosen hero and needs to collect all three stones in very epic fashion in order to save the world. Because if he doesn't, then the forces of nature themselves will destroy the world as they know it. And Ash is the only one who can do it. Also, collecting is bad, according to this movie.
Yep.
The collector is literally the bad guy. He's one of the people that has those Mew cards that everybody's after. He's like, oh, my collection started with this Mew card, and now I'm out capturing legendary birds and destroying, the balances of the earth. Fire, earth, wind, water, and electricity. So keep that in mind. But this movie, like, again, perfect amount of exposition in mists of also having some of the best action sequences in Pokemon. Really, him riding on Lugia, it's awesome. Charizard pulling a sled behind Ash, the music's on point. Like, these movies are just so good.
Mm-hmm.
I could watch these hundreds of times. And the last one, which I think will come as a surprise to most people, Pokemon the third movie is my favorite and the best Pokemon movie out of them. Why, do you ask? Very simple plot to understand. No one's really the bad guy other than the researcher that ends up abandoning his daughter because the mother also disappeared. The researcher ends up getting trapped in Unknown World, is what I'll call it. And the girl ends up using Unknown to steal Ash Ketchum's mother, has Entei that she calls Papa, and is like crystallizing the world to make it in the shape of her own reality, also destroying the world if they can't stop it. More about saving Ash's mom, I think, is the biggest plot of this story. But Ash knows this girl. Apparently, they played when they were little, and I just think like the plot is like very near, as this is one of the times that Ash's mother actually gets involved in these plots, and the action sequences, like the fight between Charizard and Entei, is awesome. It is fun. When Charizard saves Ash from falling to his death, that's a banger every single time. Yeah, but that is a definitive list.
Got them all.
Yeah, I watched them all, and I've also watched the newest one, Pokemon Horizons. This is too long of a Pokemon podcast. Is what this has become. Pokemon Horizons. I won't spend a whole ton of time of this, as you guys have just listened to me synopsisize 24 straight Pokemon movies. Pokemon Horizons is the first one that goes away from Ash. Liko is the main character, and Roy. It takes place in the newer regions, and it also looks like it's traveling to other ones based on the first 12 episodes that you can watch on Netflix right now. Pretty entertaining. I didn't think that people would like Pokemon after Ash is now done. Ash is not the main character anymore. There's no more Misty, no more Brock. As of right now, it's all new characters that people have not been introduced to yet. And I think what they're doing with it is pretty good. It's not all about wanting to be the best. Liko's goal is to figure out what she wants to do in this world, and what kid isn't trying to figure that out? Am I right? Even as a 30-year-old, I can relate. Trying to figure out what you want to do in this world. So Liko is very relatable. And she does a lot of internal monologuing, and it kind of, she is like the adult, the mind of an adult with how much she worries about stuff. So I found it surprisingly well done.
Fair enough. Yep, got them all.
That is Pokemon, ladies and gentlemen. Let me know what other franchise I need to marathon. I'm not doing this for a while. This took me 3 weeks, and this is pretty much sleeping, working my 2 jobs, and then watching
And
Pokemon
Pokemon.
before going to sleep. Did this for 3 straight weeks. I am exhausted, tired, but I'm kind of excited I did it. This was a nice, fun little challenge for me, and I enjoyed it. Can
It's
I
too
have the
much
title
Pokemon.
of Pokemon? Yeah, can I be the title of Pokemon Master? Like, who else?
I
is
think
gonna-
you already had it. You're the only one still playing the games all the time.
Yeah,
You
yeah, I
had it.
am, aren't I? Yeah.
Yep.
I just cemented myself. That's what I did.
There you go.
With this. But is there anything else you wanted to talk about before we end the podcast here?
I think we're good. I don't have anything else.
All right. Excuse me while I get a little bit sappy at the end here. Thank you, everybody. This is our 200th episode.
Big one.
I want to thank everybody who listens. I know everybody had fun with the MLB stuff. I wish we had like an MLB segment like we did for the last one for this, as it's kind of a big moment. In the coming weeks, I'll try to plan something to maybe do for our listeners that have been listening for as long as we have. We just don't make any money off of this, and
Yep.
we spend our own cash. Things. So maybe when I got some free cash, maybe I'll give out some $15 game codes or something like that. Or if somebody wants to sponsor us, I'll take that too. But you people are the reason we keep doing this, and I appreciate everyone who listens, who likes, who comments, who follows, who reviews. You guys don't have to, but you do it, and we appreciate all that you do. And I know Craig feels the same way, and other Craig, if he wasn't feeling sick, would also express this. So, with that being it, that's going to be the end of the podcast. Wait for podcast 201. I have got something super special cooked up for that. I don't. I appreciate everybody.
Of course we do. What are you talking about?
If you are watching on YouTube, please make sure to like and subscribe. Comment below with. We didn't get any other home run words I could use. Probably because I said them all. In that
we have everything covered.
Yeah, there was not a single term for home run that I missed last podcast episode. Let me know again what franchise I need to marathon next, but I am looking forward to playing something else other than Pokemon. If you are listening, please make sure to like and leave a review on your podcast listening platform of choice. We are available on Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts as well. Thank you all for listening and watching. We will see you next time.
Later. Bye.